We were playing games at the birthday party when Albin took the crisp from Dulce's lips with his mouth. Everyone around fell silent for a moment. All eyes turned to me in unison. Everyone in our circle knew he was my fiancé. Fiona, why aren't you saying anything? Are you upset? Albin didn't even look at me. No, we're just playing a game. Dulce winked at me playfully. Don't mind, Fiona. We used to play like this all the time. She suddenly seemed to realize she'd said something wrong, quickly covered her mouth, then stuck her tongue out at Albin. Albin's eyes were full of affection. I watched coldly. I knew exactly what used to meant. Albin had already told me about his dating history. Dulce was his ex. Albin frowned when he saw I was ignoring Dulce. Fiona, don't make a scene over this little thing at Theo's birthday party. I nodded. Albin's expression softened. I always listened to him. The next second, I decisively turned and swept the ice cube from Theo's mouth into mine with my tongue. Everyone's jaws dropped. This was Theo Holbrook, the birthday boy, the feared Grim Reaper of London's high society. After the initial shock, Albin's face turned extremely ugly. Fiona, what are you doing in front of me? I smiled sweetly. I'm just playing a game with your mate. You're not upset, are you? Seeing him lunge forward, I calmly asked. What, are you going to make a scene at Mr. Holbrook's birthday party? At that form of address, everyone held their breath, silently looking towards Theo. The man sat down in his chair, fingers tapping the armrest. He didn't say a word. Seeing this, Dulce timidly said, Fiona, don't fight with Albin because of me dash. Before she could finish, my palm had already struck her face hard. Dulce clutched her swollen cheek in disbelief. You hit me? I looked down at her. Acting like a tart right in front of me, did you think I'd save that slap for Christmas? Fiona! Hitting my friend in public, have you no class? Albin wrapped one arm around Dulce, pointing at my nose with the other. Apologize to Dulce, or the engagement is off. This trick again. In our past arguments, whenever he threatened to call off the engagement, I'd immediately back down. Dulce sobbed in his arms. I suddenly felt an inappropriate urge to laugh. How pointless, utterly pointless. Fine, I said lazily. The engagement is off. Albin Thorley, we're done. I turned and walked out without stopping. Behind me, I heard a friend's anxious voice. Albin, aren't you going after her? You're supposed to get married next month. But Albin shouted back. Let her go. She made a scene at Theo's birthday party and hit Dulce. She's lost all her grace and dignity. Going home to cool off and reflect is just what she needs. Glancing back, I saw him lowering his head to comfort Dulce, and the tears I'd been holding back finally fell. How could I not be heartbroken? He always put grace and dignity before my feelings, but with Dulce, it was different. Oh well, I suppose 2 years of love was just water under the bridge. As soon as I got home, I called my parents to tell them about canceling the engagement. Once they knew the reason, they immediately expressed their support. I promptly deleted and blocked Albin and left the wedding planning group that included his parents. Then I went to my Facebook profile and deleted all the posts related to him one by one. Suddenly, a friend request popped up unexpectedly. The note read, "How's the tool working out for you?" Seeing the dark, ink-like profile picture, I was startled. It was Theo Holbrook. Did I just lick the lips of this London business tycoon? And used his presence to intimidate that scumbag? I sighed, realizing he must still be angry. After accepting the request, I immediately sent a message. I apologize for my rudeness. When would be convenient for you? I'd like to come and apologize in person. He didn't reply with words, but sent an invitation instead. It was for a gala dinner hosted by a business mogul at the state banquet hall. I quickly responded with all right. A call came in from a mutual friend of Albin and me. When I answered, it was Albin's furious voice. Fiona, you're not even considering making amends, and you've blocked me? My parents just told me your family has officially called off the engagement. Was it really necessary over a silly game? There should be limits to this drama. My voice turned cold. Oh, I'd almost forgotten. I hadn't finished telling you off earlier. Albin Thorley, Dulcie Sinclair is trashy, and you're even worse. I hope you two snakes deserve each other. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I hung up abruptly. The next morning, I was stunned to see Theo standing at my door. Isn't the gala tonight? I've come to deliver your gown, he said, his voice slightly hoarse as if he hadn't slept well, yet he looked alert and energetic. Still feeling apologetic towards him, I followed his lead and went to try on the dress. The moment I saw myself in the mirror, I held my breath. This gown seemed as if it had been tailored just for me. The sequins sparkled like stars, and the sheer fabric above the strapless neckline beautifully showcased my elegant collarbones. I was stunned. Ever since my engagement to Albin, he always insisted I dress conservatively, and my wardrobe was full of formal suits. I couldn't remember the last time I'd worn such a stunning gown. But clearly, I had always loved such dazzling and vibrant clothes. I let down my hair, which I'd worn up for years, and it cascaded down in large, flowing waves. I smiled, and suddenly the woman in the mirror was radiating charm. When I opened the door, Theo's eyes, dark as a coal pond, instantly locked onto me, his gaze flickering with intensity for a long while. After a moment, he said softly, "Fiona, you look beautiful." As soon as we entered the state banquet hall, Theo was called away by the host. He instructed his secretary to accompany me inside. My entrance immediately sparked a wave of discussion. Wow, who's that gorgeous woman? Her figure and gown are absolutely stunning. She seems to have come alone. This comment instantly set several male guests on edge. Albin, your fiancé is here. Why aren't you going over? Following the voice, I indeed saw Albin glaring at me with a dark expression. I walked away, pretending not to notice. However, he grabbed me abruptly. Had enough of your tantrum? Finally came to apologize? If you'd known it would be like this, you should have controlled yourself yesterday. I looked at him, bewildered. He put on a stern face. You scared Dulcie yesterday. She felt guilty and remorseful all night because of our argument. It's perfect timing, go apologize to her now. I gave a cold glance in her direction. Dulcie was watching us from afar, her eyes as red as a rabbit's, looking utterly pitiful. Damn, how annoying. I casually picked up a glass of champagne, pulled out a cigarette from my clutch, and walked towards the balcony with it between my lips. Albin followed me out, shocked to see me smoking. You smoke? You actually smoke? I rolled my eyes. He trembled with anger. Look at you, smoking and drinking. What kind of image is that? He finally noticed my gown, his brows furrowing tightly. What on earth are you wearing? It's revealing everywhere, like something from a nightclub. Either change or go home, don't embarrass yourself. Oh, so Mr. Thorley has been to nightclubs, has he? Theo appeared out of nowhere, his elegant bespoke suit unable to mask the cold aura surrounding him. But to say my date looks like she's from a nightclub, is this the refinement of the Thorley family? He placed his hand on the railing behind me, clearly staking his claim. Albin's face immediately darkened. You're Theo's date today? I blew a puff of smoke in his face, smiling. What else did you think? That I was yours? I nodded towards Dulcie, who was already gritting her teeth in the distance. That's your date. Albin's forehead veins were bulging as he clenched his fists. Theo, what's the meaning of this? Theo let out a derisive laugh, taking the cigarette from my lips and placing it between his thin ones. His eyes were lazy yet cold. Mr. Thorley, don't act so familiar. You two broke up, so we don't need to be friends anymore. He smirked, leading me away. Albin stood there, thunderstruck. I was stunned too. What did he mean by don't need to be friends anymore? I only found out when the banquet was about to begin that Albin's parents had also arrived. They called me to a corner, their faces full of affection. "Fiona, dear, that silly boy doesn't know any better. I have already had a word with him. I have also given that little minx a talking to. Fiona, you're so gracious, don't stoop to their level." Mrs. Thorley warmly held my hand. "In families like ours, men have to schmooze for business. We women should be more understanding. Couples don't need so many restrictions, don't you agree?" I pulled my hand away, smiling faintly. "Mrs. Thorley, have you forgotten that I'm the CEO of Carlyle Group?" Her face froze. I tossed my hair, every move full of allure. "I also have many social engagements, and sometimes have to play along. Can Albin understand that?" I left without another glance at the speechless elderly couple. Carlyle Group was a subsidiary Dad had given me to cut my teeth on. It had become an industry leader under my management years ago. But I'd been revolving around Albin so much these past few years. They'd actually mistaken me for the woman behind him. As the banquet began, Theo naturally took his seat next to the host's place. As his date, I of course sat beside him. While he was filling my plate, he kept giving orders to the servants. "I want that venison stew with black truffles. Give me some of that beef Wellington. And that." As luck would have it, they were all dishes Albin had planned to order. Like a childish, petulant kid. But given his high status, no one dared say anything. Albin glared at him furiously. But Theo was smiling, whispering something in my ear. I lowered my eyes and smiled softly. Albin's face turned ashen. He threw down his fork with a clatter and said in a low voice, "Theo Holbrook, you shouldn't mess with a friend's wife. Aren't you being too shameless?" The air froze for an instant. Mr. and Mrs. Thorley were startled, not knowing why Albin had gone mad enough to challenge the Grim Reaper Mr. Holbrook. At the focus of attention, Theo's expression didn't change one bit. "As far as I know, the arranged marriage between your two families has been called off." He sneered. "What status does your Thorley family have to call me friend?" Albin's entire face turned iron gray with rage. Dulcie clung to his arm, smiling as she said to me, "Fiona, you dumped Albin and immediately hooked up with Theo. What impressive skills." Theo glanced at her sideways and said cryptically, "Theo? I'm not that familiar with you, am I?" Dulcie choked, her face turning white. The crowd snickered, gossiping with relish. I was at the birthday party too. Albin even told her to reflect on herself. How loud he was then, how embarrassing now. Exactly. If it were me, with Theo Holbrook around, who would choose Albin Thorley? That woman must be from some nobody family. She's clearly a gold digger. Only Albin would treat her like a treasure. Dulcie was fuming, looking to Albin for help. But she found Albin's eyes glued to my face. Theo was about to say something when he froze as a hand suddenly covered his. He stared blankly as I carefully wiped the corner of his mouth. Why get angry at people like that? He stared intently at me, amusement spreading in his eyes. Albin couldn't stand it anymore. He shook off Dulcie and strode over furiously. "Fiona, how long are you going to throw this little princess tantrum over such a small matter? Come with me right now. I'm warning you, this is your last chance." I stood up and calmly met his gaze. "Albin, did I not make myself clear? Or are you hard of hearing from too much debauchery? We are over. Or do you want a breakup fee? Even though you're the one who cheated. I suppose I could grudgingly give you a few £100 to protect your pitiful male ego." Albin stared at me in utter shock. I had always been generous and understanding in front of him. Never so aggressive, giving him no respect at all. I couldn't be bothered to look at him anymore. I leaned down towards Theo. My cleavage peeked out slightly as I grabbed his tie, our breaths mingling. I smiled coyly. "I've lost my appetite. Want to leave with me?" Theo's eyes darkened instantly, tinged with desire. His Adam's apple bobbed noticeably. "Leaving with you? I'd give you my life if you asked." As I stepped outside, I couldn't help but laugh for a long time, remembering the ghostly pale faces of Albin and Dulcie. Theo watched me with an amused smile for a moment before embracing me from behind. Your place or mine? He asked. I gently pushed him away. Theo raised an eyebrow. What's this? Tease and run? I looked at him calmly. Even I wasn't foolish enough to miss that he wasn't looking for an apology. He was interested in me. But superficial feelings are too fragile, like scattered sand that disappears with the slightest breeze. 2 years ago, when I met Albin, I was only thinking about contributing to our family's arranged marriage. However, he was struck by my appearance and launched an intense pursuit. I hope we can be more than just an arranged marriage. I want this to be true love. So, please give me a chance to court you, he had said. He even canceled important business meetings, flying back overnight from abroad, just to make me a cup of honey tea when I was suffering from menstrual cramps. But passion, like the tide, comes in quickly and leaves just as fast. He soon became dissatisfied that I couldn't be at his beck and call due to my work commitments. His demands grew. No matter how successful a woman is, she'll eventually return to the home. Why are you working so hard? I can provide for you. Who are you dressing so scantily for? A woman should be dignified and reserved, especially since you're going to be Mrs. Thorley. But he never understood that everything I did was out of love. I preferred the title Ms. Carlyle to Mrs. Thorley. The Holbrook family's status in high society far surpassed that of the Thorleys. If a mere kiss was enough for Theo to pursue me, how could it be genuine affection? Rubbish. So, I didn't even get into his car, instead calling a taxi to go home. He leaned on the car window, gritting his teeth in frustration. Fiona, only you dared to treat me like this. I waved at him with a smile. See you around. With the arranged marriage cancelled, I had more time to focus on my career. Carlyle Group had just secured several major projects. Previously, I couldn't oversee them personally because Albin disliked me working overtime. Now, I threw myself into work completely, practically living at the office and keeping myself extremely busy. Theo would occasionally send pestering messages. The tall, aloof man sent messages like a pouting puppy. Meetings are so tiring. Had to drink with a bunch of old men today, feeling awful, sob. Pay attention to me, please? For the sake of my handsome suit? I didn't reply, not intentionally, but because I was too busy and forgot. Albin also tried calling and messaging from various numbers, essentially asking me not to be stubborn and saying the Thorleys were the best match for the Carlyles. I glanced at them briefly before deleting and blocking. I had realized that men were seriously hampering my money-making efficiency. I stayed busy like this for 3 or 4 months before things started to wind down. My parents, who were abroad, video called to congratulate me. Mom looked a bit worried seeing I'd lost weight. Your stomach hasn't been acting up, has it? I was taken aback, only then realizing that despite being so busy lately, my old condition hadn't flared up. Thinking back carefully, I vaguely remembered that no matter how busy I was, my secretary would bring meals to my desk at mealtimes. And the dishes were always my favorites. When I worked late, there would even be a thermos of stomach-soothing soup. I had assumed Mom had arranged it out of concern, so I hadn't given it much thought. With the project's success and the company reaching new heights, I organized a team-building event for all employees. Perhaps it was the lighting reminding me of Theo's birthday party. Or maybe I was just too tired, but I ended up having a few too many drinks. When my secretary was about to drive me home in the early hours, my stomach started to ache intensely. I collapsed on the ground, violently ill. Scenes from the 2 years with Albin flashed through my mind as my stomach contracted painfully. I retched so hard my eyes stung, tears and bile gushing out together. Even when there was nothing left to bring up, I lay on the ground, dry heaving uncontrollably. It felt like I had purged the entire 2 years, leaving me completely empty. My secretary was panicking and about to call 999. When she saw a tall figure sweep me up into his arms. Theo. I recognized him with my last shred of clarity. Drinking yourself sick when you have a bad stomach, Theo said, his cool, narrow eyes looking down at me. Fiona, are you trying to worry me to death? He carried me with long strides towards his car. My whole body relaxed. Just before losing consciousness completely, I had a foggy thought. We hadn't seen each other before last night, so how did he know about my stomach condition? I woke up but didn't open my eyes, the smell of disinfectant filling my nostrils. Mr. Holbrook, you've been here for a day and night. Why don't you let the driver take you home to rest? Theo replied with disdain, don't interfere with me chasing my future wife. Get out of here. I couldn't help but giggle. You dare to laugh, the man protested softly. You nearly had a gastric hemorrhage and ended up in surgery, yet you can still laugh. I opened my eyes and was startled to see Theo. The man whose clothes never had a wrinkle now had stubble on his face and bloodshot eyes. But his gaze towards me was warm and tender, with undisguised concern. My heart felt as if it had been lightly brushed by a feather, and I blurted out. Come closer. I haven't freshened up, I might smell. Despite his words, he still leaned forward. I looked straight into his eyes, as deep as a cold pool, trying to discern the meaning hidden within. Theo also lowered his gaze to look at me intently, his hot breath making my ears burn. If you keep looking at me like that, I won't be able to resist kissing you, he said, his voice husky. Did you have the food scent? I asked. He raised an eyebrow, quite clever, aren't you? Suddenly, I remembered how Albin used to constantly profess his love for me. But all he ever did was send flowers and gifts. He never remembered that I had a sensitive stomach. Even when I called him during a gastric spasm attack, he didn't come immediately. Then how did you know what I like to eat? I asked, forcing myself not to reminisce, sniffling a bit. It seemed that even at the banquet, the dishes he picked for me were ones I loved. Just as Theo was about to answer, the door burst open with a bang. Fiona, how are you? Albin rushed in, his face full of concern. But when he saw our posture, his eyes widened and he shouted. What are you two doing? Dulcie followed behind him, her eyes brimming with jealousy that was about to overflow. Yet she smiled gently. It seems that my suggestion to play games that day was a blessing for you, Fiona dear. Hearing this, Albin's face twisted for a moment. His eyes darted back and forth between me and Theo, filled with impotent rage. So this is why you were in such a hurry to break off our engagement, you've hooked up with him. He gritted his teeth, staring at me intently. Fiona Carlyle, tell me the truth. Did you find an excuse to break off our engagement? Because you think Theo is richer and more powerful than me? Theo picked at his ear, his face full of impatience. Although what you're saying is true, this VIP ward in my family's private hospital is not a place for you to barge into. Immediately, intimidating security guards escorted the two out. Albin was dragged out by his arms, looking pathetic and powerless. Yet he still shouted at me, Fiona, you gold digger, you disgust me. For a bit of money, you acted like a chaste lady in front of me for years. But you're nothing but a cheap floozy with him. Wait, I suddenly called out just as they were about to be dragged away. Theo watched me get up from the bed and said in a low voice, Don't dirty your hands for these lowlifes. I nodded and walked up to Albin. Mr. Thorley, you've been so busy calling and texting me these past few months. Changing numbers repeatedly after being blocked. Have you had no time to read the financial news? Both people held by the security guards were stunned. Dulcie looked at Albin in disbelief, her face paling a bit. Albin glared at me, trying to look fierce but clearly scared. What do you mean? Just to kindly inform you, Carlyle Group was valued at £14.5 billion last month, I said coldly. May I ask what the valuation of your Thorley Group headquarters is? Being businesspeople, Albin immediately understood my meaning. The Thorley family was no longer qualified to marry into the Carlyle family. His face quickly turned ashen. His downcast eyes darting around, his arrogant air half gone. TCH, how did I ever fancy such a specimen? I colded my gaze and suddenly kicked him hard in his sensitive area. A scream like a slaughtered pig echoed through the corridor. And Albin writhed on the ground like a maggot. Theo watched with interest, arms folded. I crouched down and patted his face, now covered in cold sweat from the pain. My family is worth billions more than yours, why would I need to leech off you? As for the Holbrook family. I looked back, and Theo shrugged. I chuckled and stepped on his face again. If I can hook up with him, it's my own capability. If you can't accept it, keep it to yourself. My smile faded, and I spoke coldly. I'll write off the past 2 years as feeding a dog. Albin Thorley, stay away from me with your manipulative ex-girlfriend. Otherwise, don't blame me for using my connection with the Holbrook family to uproot the Thorley family. Albin's face twitched violently several times. Finally, unable to say anything, he was dragged away with Dulcie. I turned to see Theo smiling at me. I gave him a side eye. What are you looking at? Afraid I'm using you for social climbing? He shamelessly pressed close, his deep voice vibrating against my eardrum. Miss Carlyle, I'm the low-hanging fruit. No need to climb, you've already got me wrapped around your finger. After being discharged from the hospital, I remained as busy as ever. Theo continued to play the role of a pitiful puppy while delivering me nourishing meals. After his countless complaints about my heartlessness, I finally agreed to have dinner with him. He booked an open-plan riverside private room at a renowned romantic restaurant in the city. Throughout the entire meal, I couldn't stop laughing. There were rose-covered cars, violinists, and even fireworks. Who would have thought that the formidable Mr. Holbrook was actually a novice at courtship? Theo looked at me helplessly as I laughed, and finally, unable to bear it any longer, he wrapped his arm around my slender waist. Is it that funny? I've never dated before, so I don't understand. Perhaps Miss Carlyle could teach me? I finally managed to stop laughing and seductively draped my arms over his shoulders. All right then. Amidst the melodious violin music, we swayed together in an intimate dance. Brilliant fireworks illuminated the sky, reflecting in his deep, affectionate eyes. Some people, attracted by the fireworks, came to take photos through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Seeing us dance, they covered their mouths and giggled, with some even pointing their phones at us. I felt a bit embarrassed and tried to pull away. But Theo held me firmly, preventing me from moving. Why bother with them? His breath was hot against my skin. I'll do whatever I want with the woman I love. This was the first time he had said he loved me. My cheeks burned as his gaze held me captive, leaving me nowhere to escape. However, a discordant voice shattered the romantic atmosphere. I tried to book the Riverside private room 6 months ago, and you said it wasn't available. Why are they allowed to use it? Hearing this familiar voice, my expression turned cold. 6 months ago. That meant before I broke up with Albin at Theo's birthday party. He had already been planning a romantic dinner for Dulcie. Sure enough, Albin stood at the door with Dulcie, glaring at me as if he wanted to devour me whole. Theo silently pulled me behind him, looking at the two of them as if they were already dead. The manager bowed and explained, I'm sorry, but this restaurant is Mr. Holbrook's property. What's wrong with me having a romantic dinner date with my boyfriend? I said coolly, pressing myself even closer to Theo. Albin gritted his teeth, his face alternating between shades of green and white. Seeing this, Dulcie immediately clung to Albin's arm and raised her chin. That's right, I'm here on a date with my boyfriend too. We booked this 6 months ago. She deliberately pressed her soft chest against Albin's arm. Albin, don't bother with these two. Let's go. Albin didn't move, just staring intently at how closely Theo and I were pressed together. My gaze, however, was fixed on the ruby necklace around Dulcie's neck. If I remembered correctly, this was the birthday gift Albin had given me last year. I grabbed the fragile gold chain and mercilessly yanked it off. Dulcie screamed, "What are you doing?" My face was covered with a layer of frost. My things, even if I throw them away as rubbish, will never be given to others. It's disgusting. Dulcie shrieked, Fiona, I'll fight you. She lunged at me with red eyes, but Theo's bodyguards tossed her out like a small chicken. Theo's voice held no warmth at all. Albin Thorley, you're lucky today. I have urgent business and no time to deal with you. If you don't want Thorley Group to go bankrupt, leave now. I glared at Albin, but suddenly found myself lifted into the air. Theo carried me over his shoulder and strode away in front of everyone. Behind us, Dulcie's pitiful cries could be heard. Albin, my necklace. Shut up. Albin's roar echoed through the night sky. He hysterically swept everything off the table. But in the end, he could only watch with bloodshot eyes as Theo carried me away, disappearing from sight. Theo took me straight back to his place. He tossed me onto the bed and leaned over me. Nipping at a small patch of skin on my neck, he mumbled. "What did you call me earlier?" I hissed softly but didn't back down. "Tell me how you knew about my stomach issues, and I'll answer you." His body, looming over me with an overwhelming presence, paused. "You really don't remember anything, do you, you little ingrate?" I was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Theo sat up, his eyes churning with emotions before he finally spoke. "About a year and a half ago, didn't you faint from a stomach spasm and end up in hospital?" I froze. "How did you?" "Because I was the one who took you to the hospital." I stared at him, eyes wide with surprise. I tried hard to search for that memory. It seemed that someone had indeed come to my house to deliver medicine at the time, and I lost consciousness shortly after. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital, with no memory of what happened in between. That person, was it really Theo? I looked at him incredulously. "Aren't you the Grim Reaper, Mr. Holbrook? Why would someone like Albin have you running errands?" Theo rolled his eyes. "I'm a person too, you know. Besides, I wasn't doing it for him. My mother asked me to go." As Theo calmly explained, I finally learned what had happened that year. Over a year ago, the Thorley family happened to see Mrs. Holbrook at a charity event. And there was Theo, standing beside her with a sullen face. Given the Thorleys' social standing, they rarely had the chance to meet the Holbrooks, let alone both mother and son. They never expected that attending a routine charity event would bring such a pleasant surprise. The Thorleys immediately seized the opportunity to strike up a conversation. Mrs. Holbrook, impressed by their enthusiasm for charity work, responded politely. After the event, Albin received my call saying I was having a stomach spasm, and asking him to bring me medicine. But he had an urgent matter to attend to and was about to send his driver instead. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Holbrook volunteered Theo to deliver it. "Your grandmother passed away from late-stage stomach cancer. The poor girl must be suffering terribly," Mrs. Holbrook said sympathetically. "You can get there faster in your sports car." Theo might not care about anyone else, even royalty. But his mother, she held a special place in his heart. Reluctantly, he went over, knocked on the door, and was struck speechless by the sight of a small face as white as paper. She wasn't wearing makeup, her hair was a mess, and she was in a plain white nightgown. Yet, she turned his world upside down. Here's the medicine," stammered the man who was usually so eloquent at the negotiating table. That girl frowned and glanced at him, sending what felt like an electric current straight to his cerebral cortex. Before he could react, a soft, fragrant body fell into his arms. She had fainted. Theo froze for a good 10 seconds before realizing he needed to call 999 immediately. He stayed with her from afternoon until dusk, contemplating 1,000 ways to steal her away. Until Albin finally arrived. The moment she heard Albin thanking him, she woke up and buried her face in Albin's chest. Theo stared at the embracing couple for half a minute before using all his strength to turn and leave. "I had someone look into it. Albin's urgent matter that day was attending Dulcie's birthday party," he said, his eyes gleaming mischievously. "I figured you two were probably done for, so I became his good mate." Theo gently gripped my chin and leaned in close, his cold eyes locking onto mine as he enunciated each word. "Biding my time. Theo and I are together now." The man who is decisive in the business world turns out to be clingy in private. I'm in the underground car park. "Have you come down yet?" I sigh helplessly. "That's the 8th time you've asked." "What's the rush?" "Can't wait to see my girlfriend," Theo says matter-of-factly. My ears heat up, and a sweet feeling spreads through my heart. Somehow, I'm reminded of a time when I had a date with Albin. I worked overtime a bit and rushed over, worried he'd been waiting long. Albin not only wasn't happy but frowned and scolded me. "Walking like that, which upper-class lady behaves like you?" But when you know someone you like is waiting for you, how can you not be eager to see them? I shake my head. Why am I thinking about him? Bad luck. Theo is leaning against his black Bentley, waiting for me. Tall and slender, he exudes the languid elegance of someone in a position of power. My heart feels like it's been suddenly pawed by a small animal. Walking up to him, I stand on tiptoe and kiss the corner of his mouth. Theo's eyes suddenly darken. How about we skip dinner and go to my place first? Before I can answer, I hear someone shout angrily behind me. Theo Holbrook! A person lunges forward, unexpectedly punching Theo in the corner of his lip. Theo immediately kicks him in the stomach. The two men tear at each other like male animals. But soon, Albin is pinned down by Theo, unable to move. I look at the wound on the corner of Theo's mouth with concern. Are you all right? Albin howls with a contorted face. Fiona, don't you know he's had dirty thoughts about you for ages? Theo Holbrook, you're just a despicable hyena. Always eyeing what others. Arg. An ugly scream echoes through the underground car park. I withdraw my foot, my gaze sharp. You're the one with a dirty mind, seeing others as filthy. I broke up with you because you cheated, it has nothing to do with anyone else. Albin Thorley, if you want to be a mad dog, go home and let your parents tie you up with a skipping rope. Don't come out here biting people. I stop looking at him and complain to Theo. A mad dog bites you and you bite back. Aren't you afraid of getting rabies? Theo points at the small cut on the corner of his mouth, pretending to be pitiful. Darling, it hurts. I don't even glance at Albin, whose cheeks are swollen and missing 2 teeth. I say softly, let's go home. Fiona! Albin's hoarse voice comes from behind. I'm injured like this, and you only care about his small cut. In the past, when I accidentally cut my finger, you would immediately put it in your mouth. Fiona, I know I was wrong. I thought I only liked your face, but I actually fell in love with you long ago. I don't believe you could forget me so quickly. We were so in love and ready to spend our lives together. Have you forgotten all that? Huh. The one who cheated first is now questioning me. As if it wasn't him who, a few months ago, played flirtatious games with his ex-girlfriend in front of me, his fiancé, and everyone else. As if it wasn't him who, half a year ago, was discussing marriage with me but made reservations at a romantic restaurant with his ex-girlfriend. As if it wasn't him who, over a year ago, when I was at my most vulnerable and sick, and turned to him first for help, left me to celebrate his ex-girlfriend's birthday. Albin Thorley, you're truly laughable. Theo pauses at these words. But I mercilessly pull him away. Let's go quickly. Otherwise I'm going to be sick. I want my fingers in your mouth too. Shut up. Perhaps because Albin had been beaten so severely by Theo this time, he hadn't appeared before me for a long while. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. My Carlyle group had grown several times in scale, with profits rivaling those of the parent company. The wedding date for Theo and me had also been scheduled. As for the Thorley Group, after experiencing several investment failures, it was a shadow of its former self. Albin is in a real mess, isn't he? Barely has a penny to his name. And Dulcie is still demanding an exorbitant breakup fee from him. She's threatening to expose the Thorley company's dirty secrets online if he doesn't pay up. He had no choice but to give in. That Dulcie is something else. As soon as she got the breakup fee, she started splashing out on clothes and handbags, desperately trying to squeeze into high society circles. But she ended up being set up and sent to an old man's bed. Now she's like a scared rabbit, constantly getting beaten by the man's wife. My friend was speaking excitedly, but seeing Theo's cool gaze across the table, she realized she had said the wrong thing and looked at me apologetically. I, however, treated it like a joke, without the slightest reaction. For the convenience of wedding preparations, I had moved into Theo's house in the weeks leading up to the wedding. But I didn't expect to be suddenly stopped at Theo's front door. The person hadn't even come close, but I could already smell the strong scent of alcohol. He looked as disheveled as a vagrant. Fiona, I know I was wrong. Please don't marry him, all right? I was stunned for a moment before recognizing that it was actually Albin. Wasn't he always the one most concerned about maintaining a respectable and dignified appearance? How had he ended up like this? His beard was unkempt, and he stared at the red marks on my neck, his eyes turning frighteningly red. You used to be willing to do so much for me. I won't ask anything of you anymore, and I've cut all ties with Dulcie. Is there still a chance for us? I laughed. Albin, forget about being treated like rubbish. I wouldn't even consider you recyclable. even if I were to grudgingly treat you as a person. Do you think you're in any way comparable to Theo? His nostrils flared, wanting to speak but unable to form words. His cracked lips trembled, looking helpless and pitiful. But I felt nothing but disgust. Don't show up again, or I promise next time you'll be beaten to tears. I turned to leave, not wanting to linger for a moment. He stood there, polluting the very air. Fiona, please, give me one more chance, he shouted hoarsely. But the iron gate in front of me opened automatically. Someone swiftly pulled me behind them. Theo, like a predator lurking in the dark night, coldly locked eyes with Albin for a second. Albin instinctively shuddered. By the time he came to his senses, the heavy iron gate had already closed. Inside the house, I was pinned against the wall by Theo as he interrogated me. What did you say to him? I avoided answering directly, raising an eyebrow to ask him. You knew he was there, why didn't you come out? He lazily replied, what you said would hurt him the most. But I was timing it. If you had talked to him for more than a minute, I would have rushed out. I smiled, my eyes and brows softening with the warmth of happiness. Theo lowered his gaze and kissed me. Beside us, our large wedding photo was bathed in the warm yellow light. That was the image of happiness.